Right, welcome back. Let's continue with more news at this hour. In fact, staying with legal matters, the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial has been postponed to tomorrow by the High Court in Pretoria. This is to allow the legal representatives to have a pre-trial conference. The trial will continue as a new judge comes into the picture after Judge Tshifiwa Maumela could no longer proceed with the matter due to ill health. Maumela has also been suspended by President Cyril Ramaphosa following complaints alleging that he delayed some cases. But on that note, let's get some analysis. We're joined in studio by legal expert Thabo Masombuka. Very good afternoon to you, Thabo. Thank you for your time with us here on the SABC.
Good afternoon.
Perhaps in the build-up to the trial restarting tomorrow, your overall analysis of what has transpired to date, 9 years almost of justice delayed, being justice tonight.
Yeah, it's quite a long road for the Senzo Meyiwa family, for the interested member of the public as well. But, unfortunately, the wheels of justice turn very slowly, but they eventually do turn. Or what we've seen today was, in fact, a typical example of that. That notwithstanding the disruption, the change in the bench of the replacement of judges, the case will begin, start de novo, which means start afresh, anew, as if no trial happened at all. Unfortunately, then, from a court of public opinion, it's going to be difficult to ignore the fact that there has been witnesses already led. If you have seen the judge's approach, it's very clinical, typically strict, true to the process, true to the substance. He wants to leave no stone unturned. He wants to make sure that there's a thorough clarification of the roles. Legal representatives have got full instructions. They must go check with their clients. Their clients understand the process, understand the implications. So it's going to be a different new ball game, because it is important that the judge does that in the interest of justice.
Perhaps on the back of that, with the witnesses that have already taken the stand, how will what has already been echoed perhaps aid the defense at this point, given what has been echoed on TV, on radio, and in the court of public opinion?
Yeah. Here's the thing. I don't know if you and your viewers would remember a process in the US. There's something called a jury. So when the jury is being selected and appointed, usually the judge gives them a little bit of a lecture. One of those lectures is that don't interact with the case in public. Don't watch news. If you haven't watched news, don't have what happens in the news influence your outcomes. So it is a nature of jurists in general, particular judicial officers, that when you oversee a case, especially a case of high profile such as this, which gets public opinionated throughout social media, throughout the news, in various platforms and gatherings, you have to stay put to what is called neutrality of facts, neutrality of the law. So in other words, irrespective of what the judge know or may not know, it is in the interest of justice that he proceeds as if he has not heard about this case under any circumstances. But of course, from a personal reality point of view, me and you knows that that's not possible. But what the law requires him to do is to stay put to the principles of neutrality and impartiality. In other words, he has to ignore any aspects or part of evidence previously led.
Sure. Because
once that happens, there are prospects and possibilities of a mistrial. Already, I got a question already that what does the fact that these accused, who are already in custody, by the way, isn't that prejudicial for them? That they've already spent so many years in prison, awaiting trial. My answer to that is simply that, should this court find them guilty, right? Should this court find them guilty, for an example, then this court will take into account, for purpose of sentencing, the time that these accused have already spent in custody. And for all intents and purposes, that time will be deducted from their sentence as a true consideration or as a painful consideration of their circumstances and situation.
Thank you for that, because we're also looking at resources, having to factor that in. I wonder, as we look at the conduct of Judge Maumela as well, perhaps what spotlight that shines on the judicial system at large and the gaps, or what's coming to the fore on that front for you during this trial in particular?
You mean the previous judge?
Yes.
Look, the conduct, behavior, and mannerism of the previous judge is now neither here nor there. What is important now is that the new trial begins and it focuses on the futuristic finalization of this outstanding legal dispute. I call it a legal dispute because it's what the state alleges that the accused have committed. There are proper platforms and forums which are relevant in ventilating and navigating any sorts of behavioral conduct by judicial officers. This is called the Judicial Services Commission, where every aggrieved individual or member of the public can refer that matter there. And that process and that forum then ventilates the conduct, and they make proper recommendations on what should be the justifiable or acceptable outcome. I usually prefer to leave those things for that platform to ventilate, because it is not in our ethical nature as legal practitioners to cast aspersion or even doubt or discuss the conduct of other legal practitioners such as judicial officers when judicial platforms such as the Judicial Service Commission do exist to do exactly that.
All right, I'll leave it there then for now. That is a fair point you've made. I think just perhaps as we wrap up this conversation, I want to look ahead, the trial beginning tomorrow. Is there hope in you that justice will be served? The families will get the answers that they're seeking. Perhaps, as I mentioned, 9 years later, over a year since the start of the previous trial. Where to from here? What are you observing there?
There is a tried principle in our law that states that justice must not only be seen to be done. In fact, it says justice must not only be done, but it must manifestly be seen to be done. What that effectively means is that it is in the interest of not just justice, but the public and the integrity of the judicial service or the judicial criminal justice in this country, that through this trial, justice must be restored and confidence in the justice system must be restored. And I see this new just approach being clinically to do that. He wants to leave no stone unturned. He wants to make sure that all aspects of the procedure, the substance, are thoroughly and substantively covered so that there is no single doubt in everyone's mind come the end of this trial, that there was some miscarriage of justice. If you look at this approach for tomorrow, for an example, that the pre-trial conference must ventilate all aspects of legal representation, all procedural issues related to the leading of evidence. The prosecution must detail in a clear, in no uncertain terms, how they are going to lead evidence, which evidence they are going to lead, which witness is going to say why, how much of what the witnesses are going to say is going to be relevant to which aspect of the charge against the accused. And someone did ask me as well about whether or not the issue of legal representation. Remember, the judge ordered that the legal aid board must come and give reasons why, based on their procedure and their systems, these accused persons should not be entitled to a legal representation, even if they have chosen to use their own lawyers, private lawyers, who must, by the way, which is allowed, be compensated or paid for by the legal aid board.
Well, that's obviously set to unfold again tomorrow. Thank you for joining us in studio and for your analysis. We're just getting a pre-trial a preview, in fact, from our legal expert, Thabo Masombuka, head of the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial, now having to resume again tomorrow at the High Court in Pretoria after it was delayed on the 12th of June. So we'll continue to monitor developments as it unfolds from there.